somebody from outside,
In the
right?
store.
Suppliers, clients, contractors, you name it.
Yeah.
But are we really like squeezing every drop of value out of those relationships? That's what we're looking at today, this whole idea of partnering and contracting relationships
Okay.
and how to move past, just signing a contract and calling it a day.
Right. Yeah. It's not just about the dotted line, is it?
Exactly.
Is recognizing that gold mine of potential these relationships have.
Okay.
Done right, they're not just some transaction. They're chances to really boost innovation, make things run smoother, and yeah, even cut down on those annoying admin costs, as you've probably seen yourself.
For sure. Less us versus them, more let's make this awesome together kind of thing.
Exactly.
But there's this part of me that thinks, doesn't that need like a massive leap of faith?
Yeah.
How do you balance control, keeping things on track with actually trusting these outside folks, especially when there's so much on the line?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one this document tackles head on.
Okay.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty of contracts and all that later.
Yeah.
But the core idea is that trust isn't just a nice to have, it's the bedrock.
Interesting. And speaking of foundations, the document mentions this video, getting the most from contractors.
Right.
I'm guessing that could be handy for our listeners who are, knee-deep in those kinds of collaborations every day.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic resource if you're looking for practical tips on handling that specific partnership type.
Perfect. Now, benefits, from what I've read, successful partnering can lead to some pretty impressive outcomes.
Yeah.
Like slashing those admin costs we talked about.
For sure.
But what else is in it for us? What's the real payoff?
It's not just saving money. It's about getting the biggest bang for your buck.
Okay.
Maximizing your impact.
Yeah.
Think about it. Fewer admin costs equals more resources freed up for the project itself.
Makes sense.
And when you have everyone aiming for the same goals, talking clearly, you can avoid all that frustration and wasted effort.
Oh, tell me about it.
Those bottlenecks that just kill so many projects.
Yeah. Smoother workflows, fewer misunderstandings. That does sound like a dream.
Right.
But how does this partnering approach actually differ from the way most of us are used to working with, contractors or suppliers?
It's a big shift, really.
Okay.
The document has this helpful table, a comparison that really lays it all out.
Okay.
On one side, you've got the traditional way, which tends to be more, transactional, focused on individual goals, who's taking on the risk, and really controlled communication.
It's that stick to the contract mentality, right?
Yeah.
You're working alongside someone, but not really collaborating.
Exactly.
Not in a way that feels, meaningful.
Whereas the partnering approach, it's all about shared goals, open communication,
Okay.
a willingness to share both the good and the bad, the risks and the rewards. It's about fostering innovation, making a space where people feel safe, sharing ideas, challenging each other, but in a way that moves things forward.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal, but even in the most lovey-dovey collaborative partnerships, you still need contracts.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's got to be some kind of legal safety net.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Contracts are still essential.
Okay.
But the way you look at them changes. Instead of seeing it as a weapon to protect yourself, it becomes this blueprint for success. This shared understanding of who does what, who's responsible for what, and super important, those shared goals we keep coming back to.
So it's like a roadmap.
Exactly.
Guiding the partnership towards a destination you both agree on.
Exactly. And like any good roadmap, it needs to be clear, well-defined, especially when you get to things like pricing, payments, all that.
Oh, now that's where I get tripped up. I always struggle to get my head around the different types of contracts.
Oh, let's clear that up a bit.
Okay.
You've probably run into fixed price contracts, pretty straightforward.
Right.
You agree on a price up front, that's it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if unexpected costs pop up.
Right.
Great for predictability, but can be a bit risky for the contractor if, things go sideways.
Makes sense. What are the other options then?
Then you've got variable contracts, often called cost plus.
Okay.
Here, the client agrees to cover the contractor's actual costs,
Uh-huh.
plus an agreed-upon fee on top.
Okay.
It shares the risk more, but it needs a higher level of trust,
Yeah.
transparency to make sure those costs are legit.
So it's a trade-off then.
Yeah.
More flexibility, but also more room for arguments if you're not communicating super clearly.
You got it. And that's why this partnering approach puts such a big focus on open dialogue.
Makes sense.
You need to be able to have those frank conversations about budgets, resources, potential problems,
Right.
without worrying about ruining the relationship.
Yeah, you need that safety, to be honest.
Exactly.
Speaking of challenges, the document mentions this contract change control.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Think of it as a pressure release valve.
Okay.
Projects rarely go exactly as planned, right?
Oh, never.
So contract change control is basically a way to tweak the agreement when things shift. It's about having a structured way to adapt to the unexpected
Right.
without throwing the whole partnership off the rails.
So it's like having a built-in things might change clause.
Yeah.
Recognizing that and having a way to adjust course without, blowing everything up.
Precisely. Acknowledging that projects are dynamic, they're not static.
Right.
But still keeping a clear framework for making decisions.
I like it. Now, all this talk about contracts and change control leads me to another big thing, negotiation. I've always seen negotiation as this, tough, almost adversarial process. But this document calls it an art.
It is, in a way.
How do you square those two ideas?
It's about recognizing that negotiation, especially in this partnering context, isn't about winning and making the other side lose.
Yeah.
It's about finding a solution that actually works for both sides, which often takes a more, shall we say, delicate approach.
So less about playing hardball and more about really understanding each other's needs.
Yes.
Finding that sweet spot where everyone benefits.
Exactly. And that's where the art comes in.
Right.
It takes a certain skill to stay objective, to focus on the issues, and not get bogged down in personality clashes.
Easier said than done, for sure, especially when you've got strong personalities or, goals that are pulling in different directions.
It can be.
Any specific techniques for staying objective in those moments?
The document highlights focusing on interests, not positions.
Okay.
So instead of getting stuck on my price versus your price, try to grasp the why behind those numbers. Maybe the contractor is worried about covering their costs,
Makes sense.
while the client wants to make sure the project stays on budget.
Right. Both valid concerns.
By zeroing in on those underlying needs, you can often find a creative solution that ticks everyone's boxes.
I like that it's about digging deeper, understanding the why behind the what.
Precisely. And the document has an exercise to illustrate this, focusing on a local government organization.
Okay.
They want to partner with a construction company to build a school.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
What's the main takeaway from that exercise?
It makes you walk in both sides' shoes.
Okay.
You have to think about their aims, their worries, and the spots where those might crash.
So it's like a simulation then.
Yeah.
A way to practice navigating those tricky dynamics before you're in a real-life situation.
Exactly. And even without getting into the specifics, the big takeaway is that understanding both sides of the partnership is crucial.
Makes sense.
It's crucial for negotiation and collaboration to work well.
It makes me think about those larger-scale partnerships, like those public-private partnerships, PPPs. We hear so much about these days.
Right.
Seems like the stakes would be even higher there.
They often are. PPPs often involve big, complex projects. Projects with big financial and social implications.
So,
We're talking collaborations between government agencies and private companies
okay.
to deliver public services or infrastructure projects,
Oh, yeah.
building hospitals, transportation systems, that kind of thing.
So instead of the government doing it all themselves, they're tapping into the private sector's know-how and resources.
Exactly, to work towards those shared goals.
And it can be a powerful model, can it?
It can.
PPPs can use the private sector's innovation and efficiency to deliver better public services.
Right.
For example, a private company might bring in some cutting-edge tech or management practices that a government agency just wouldn't have.
Absolutely, it can be a win-win.
And because private companies usually have a strong incentive to deliver on time and within budget,
Yeah.
it seems like there's a built-in accountability factor there, too.
It's a key benefit, for sure. By aligning incentives and sharing both the risks and the rewards, PPPs can lead to smoother, more effective project delivery.
But what about the downsides? It seems like things could get messy when you have, public and private interests bumping heads.
You raise a valid point. PPPs aren't risk-free. The document acknowledges that.
Okay.
For example, if a project goes over budget or hits technical snags, the private partner often takes the bigger financial hit.
So it's not a walk in the park for either side.
No.
But the potential rewards, especially in terms of delivering those essential public services, can be massive.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in digging deeper into PPPs, the document suggests a couple of videos that really go into detail.
Oh, nice.
Particularly from a UN perspective. They give you a global view of how these partnerships are being used to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges.
That does sound fascinating. It
Yeah.
reminds you that these concepts we're talking about, they're not just theoretical.
Yeah.
They have real-world impact,
You do.
potential to change people's lives.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another layer of complexity: international projects.
Okay.
When you throw in cultural differences, different ways of doing business,
Uh-huh.
it seems like the chances of miscommunication and conflict would just explode.
Yeah. It definitely adds a whole other dimension.
It does.
It's not just managing tasks and deadlines anymore.
No.
It's about navigating all those cultural nuances, building trust across borders.
You're spot on, and the document really hammers home that trust is king in international collaborations.
Okay.
Without that solid foundation of trust, it's almost impossible to overcome the inevitable bumps in the road.
All right. So trust is key. But how do you build it? When you're working with people from different cultures, different communication styles, expectations, all of that.
It takes conscious effort to understand those differences and adjust your approach.
Right.
The document talks about cultural intelligence.
Okay.
Being aware of your own cultural biases, being open to learning from others, and being flexible in how you communicate.
So it's not just tolerating those differences, it's actively trying to understand them.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that there isn't one right way to do things.
Right.
And being flexible enough to find solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah, flexibility does seem key.
It is.
But are there any specific conflict management techniques that you've found work well in international projects?
While the document doesn't go deep into specific techniques,
Okay.
it does stress having clear communication channels.
Right.
And a process for resolving disputes that everyone agrees on beforehand.
So it's like having a roadmap for when conflict inevitably pops up.
Exactly. Having that process helps cool things down, prevents those little disagreements from turning into major blowouts.
Makes sense. Stop those little things from derailing the whole project.
Exactly.
Now, we've focused on the challenges, but let's not forget the incredible opportunities these international projects offer.
Absolutely.
Working on these projects can be like a crash course in new ideas, different ways of working, a much wider range of perspectives.
It's like a global masterclass
I like that.
for anyone willing to really embrace the experience.
And those experiences can be so enriching, professionally and personally.
They can.
So if you were advising a project manager, someone about to lead their first international project, what would be your top tips?
Based on everything we've talked about,
Yeah.
I'd say first and foremost, prioritize building those relationships.
Okay.
Take the time to really get to know your team members, partners, stakeholders, everyone.
So go beyond just the work stuff.
Yeah.
Really connect with the people.
Exactly. Those connections are invaluable when challenges pop up, and they will.
They always do.
I'd also advise them to be patient, to be flexible. Things might not move at the pace they're used to.
Right.
They'll likely hit unexpected roadblocks or cultural differences that need a change in approach.
So be ready to adapt, to go with the flow a bit.
Precisely. And that takes humility, a willingness to learn from others.
Now, I'm curious about the role technology plays in all of this. It seems like it can be both a help and a hindrance.
It can.
On the one hand, it can make communicating across borders so much easier.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can also lead to misunderstandings, a lack of genuine connection.
It's true. Technology can be both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But there's no denying it's become essential for bridging those geographical gaps,
Right.
enabling collaboration across cultures.
Just think about the tools we use every day.
Yeah.
Video conferencing, instant messaging, project management software.
Hope it.
They've made it possible to connect with people around the world instantly
Yeah.
and work together as if we were all in the same room.
Absolutely. And as technology keeps evolving, we're seeing even more platforms pop up.
Right.
Ones that promise to further boost our ability to collaborate globally.
That's exciting. It feels like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of collaboration,
It does.
where it doesn't really matter where you are physically anymore.
Exactly. This opens up so many possibilities for organizations and individuals.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to access the best talent, the best expertise, no matter where they are in the world.
It's like the global talent pool is finally a reality.
Precisely. And that's a game changer for any organization looking to innovate to really thrive in today's interconnected world.
But like you said earlier, technology is just a tool. It's up to us to use it wisely.
For sure.
It can never fully replace that human element.
They can.
That face-to-face interaction, even if it's not all the time, is still crucial for really solidifying those partnerships,
Absolutely.
for fostering genuine connection.
Absolutely. Well, technology helps bridge the gap. Those in-person interactions are key.
Speaking of which, earlier we briefly mentioned development projects,
Right.
specifically those happening in emerging countries.
Yeah.
Can we dig into that a bit more?
Yeah.
It seems like an area where partnering and contracting could have a particularly big impact.
It is. These projects are often run by international organizations or NGOs.
Okay. Aimed at tackling big issues like poverty, healthcare, education, infrastructure, all in developing countries.
So it's about more than just building stuff.
It is.
It's about empowering communities, improving lives in a way that lasts.
Precisely. And successful development projects often rely heavily on partnerships.
Okay.
Partnerships between local organizations, government agencies, international donors, private companies, the whole mix.
Bringing together a diverse group of people, all with unique expertise and resources
Right.
to solve complex challenges.
Exactly. And those partnerships can take many forms.
Like what?
Joint ventures, capacity building initiatives, tech transfer agreements, you name it.
It sounds incredibly complex, but also incredibly rewarding to be a part of.
It is, and it's an area where those principles we've been discussing, trust, collaboration, cultural intelligence, they're absolutely essential.
It makes sense. When you're working in these sensitive, culturally diverse contexts, those strong foundations are non-negotiable.
You need that solid base, absolutely. And the impact of these successful development projects, it can be truly transformative, right?
It can.
Not just for individuals, but for entire communities, even countries.
Absolutely. It's inspiring to see the positive change these collaborations can achieve.
Do you have any, specific examples of successful development projects that come to mind?
There are countless examples, but the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh immediately comes to mind.
Okay, tell me about it.
This microfinance organization, through a whole network of partnerships, has helped lift millions out of poverty.
Wow.
They provide small loans, financial services, empowering people and communities to become self-sufficient.
It's amazing how innovative partnerships can really make a tangible difference in the world.
It really is.
It shows the potential of collaborative efforts to tackle some of humanity's biggest challenges.
It does.
I want to circle back to technology's role, since it's always evolving.
Yeah.
It seems like every day there's a new tool or platform claiming to revolutionize how we work together.
It's true. It can be overwhelming trying to keep up.
It can.
But it's also exciting to think about the possibilities it's opening up for collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some of the key trends you're seeing in this space?
One trend that's really picking up steam is the rise of cloud-based collaboration platforms.
Okay.
These platforms let teams work together seamlessly on documents, spreadsheets, presentations, all kinds of files, no matter where they are.
It's like having a virtual office.
Exactly.
Everyone can access and work on shared stuff in real time.
Right.
No more version control headaches.
No more endless email chains.
My goodness.
It's a game changer for teams spread across different locations.
I've also been hearing a lot about artificial intelligence, AI, and how it might change how we work. How do you see AI playing a role in collaboration?
It's already starting to make its mark in different ways.
Right.
Automating those tedious, repetitive tasks.
Right.
Offering data-driven insights and recommendations.
It's like having a super efficient virtual assistant.
You could say that. And as AI gets even more advanced,
Yeah.
we can expect to see even more sophisticated applications. Intelligent chatbots that can help with communication.
Yeah, okay.
Even help resolve conflicts in real time.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Sounds like AI has the potential to make our work smoother and boost our collaborative abilities.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember that AI is a tool.
Oh, okay.
It's not meant to replace human interaction.
Right.
It can help us, free us up to focus on those tasks that require creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence.
So finding the right balance is key.
Yeah.
Using AI's power while still keeping that human touch.
Exactly. And with technology changing so fast, staying informed and adaptable is key.
For sure.
We need to understand how these advancements can further enhance our collaborative efforts.
Well said. This has been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
I already feel more equipped to navigate the complexities of partnering and collaboration.
That's great to hear. And while we've covered a lot, there's always more to learn. As we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll shift our focus to some of technology's potential downsides.
Okay.
And we'll explore those essential human skills that'll become even more valuable in this increasingly collaborative world.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Picking up where we left off, something struck me from those extra readings you sent over.
Oh, yeah.
It's about the different, I guess you could say, flavors of relationships organizations can have. It's not just a simple partner or not situation, is it?
You're right. It's definitely way more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of picturing it like a spectrum,
Okay.
from those quick one-off transactions to those really deep intertwined collaborations.
That's a great way to visualize it, yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it. You might have a short-term agreement with a supplier for a specific project,
Right.
but then have a long-term strategic alliance with another company where you're like co-creating new products or services together.
So it's about picking the right level of commitment, the right amount of integration
Yeah,
based on what you're trying to achieve with each organization.
that's a great way to put it. And understanding these different levels, I think it can really help set realistic expectations
Right.
and avoid those miscommunications that happen when one side thinks it's a deeper partnership than the other side does.
Yeah, definitely. Getting on the same page from the start is crucial.
Yeah.
This idea of interorganizational networks also really jumped out at me in the readings.
Oh, interesting.
It sounds kind of like this complex web of connections between different companies.
It is a bit like that, yeah. And that article by Matt and Heikia and their colleagues, they really dig into how to manage these networks well to create value right from the get-go of a project.
So it's not just about managing individual relationships, right?
Right.
It's about understanding the dynamics of the whole network.
The bigger picture.
Yeah, how all those relationships play off each other
Mm.
and how that ultimately impacts what you're trying to achieve with the project.
Exactly. They found that having a shared vision for the project, open communication, and strong trust between everyone in the network, those were make or break factors for success.
It makes sense. You need that sense of shared purpose.
You do,
That
yeah.
willingness to collaborate, even when different people have different priorities, different interests at stake.
And that's where strong leadership is so important,
Right.
making sure those competing interests are managed well.
Yeah.
So the network can thrive and everyone benefits.
Makes you think about trust even more, especially in international projects,
For sure.
where those cultural differences we talked about before can really muddy the waters.
Absolutely. That research by Manu and their colleagues, the one focusing on trust in contractor-subcontractor relationships,
Right.
it has some really fascinating insights on this.
Oh, like what?
They found that shared values, open communication, and a willingness to go above and beyond to really go the extra mile, those were huge in building trust.
So it's more than just doing what the contract says.
It is,
It's about showing you're reliable, you have integrity,
Right.
you're truly invested in each other's success.
Precisely. And building that kind of trust, it takes time, especially when you're navigating cultural differences.
It's a journey.
But it's worth it. It leads to smoother collaboration, less conflict, and in the end, a much higher chance of the project actually succeeding.
It's an investment in the long run.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. But even with that solid foundation of trust, conflicts are bound to happen.
They are.
What are some ways to handle those conflicts well, especially in a situation with lots of different cultures involved?
Cultural intelligence, that ability to adapt to different cultural norms,
Right.
it plays a huge role here.
Mm.
It's about being aware of your own cultural biases, being willing to listen and learn from others,
Yeah.
especially those who might have very different ways of communicating
Right.
or different approaches to dealing with conflict.
So more than just tolerating those differences, it's about actively trying to bridge them.
Exactly. Recognizing that there isn't one right way to do things.
Right.
And being flexible, finding solutions that work for everybody.
That flexibility seems so key.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any specific conflict management techniques that you found effective in those international projects?
Well, the source material doesn't really dive into specific techniques,
Okay.
but it does stress the importance of having clear communication channels.
Right, so everyone knows how to talk to each other.
Exactly. And a process for resolving disputes, one that everyone agrees on before things kick off.
So you have a plan in place for when conflict inevitably arises.
Exactly. Having that process helps de-escalate things, prevents those little disagreements from snowballing into huge problems.
You don't want those little things to derail the whole project.
Exactly.
We focused a lot on the challenges of these international projects,
We have.
but we can't forget about the incredible opportunities they present.
You're absolutely right. Working on these projects, it can be like a crash course
Oh, how so?
in new ideas, different ways of working. You get exposed to such a broader range of perspectives.
Like a global masterclass, like you said before.
Exactly. For anyone willing to really embrace the experience.
Yeah, and those experiences can be so enriching, both professionally and personally.
Absolutely.
So if you were giving advice to a project manager, someone about to lead their first international project,
Okay.
what would be your top tips based on everything we've talked about?
Top tips. Okay, I'd say prioritize building relationships.
Okay, make those connections.
Take the time to really get to know your team members, partners, stakeholders from other cultures.
Go beyond just the transactional, the work stuff.
Yeah, make those genuine connections with people.
Yeah.
Those connections are so valuable when challenges arise because they always do.
They do.
I'd also advise them to be patient, to be flexible. Things might not move at the pace they're used to.
That's true.
They'll probably hit unexpected roadblocks or cultural differences that require a change in approach.
So go with the flow. Be ready to adapt.
Exactly. And that takes humility, a willingness to learn from others.
Now, I'm curious about the role of technology in all this. It seems like it can be a double-edged sword.
It can, yeah.
It can make communicating across borders so much easier,
Right.
but it can also lead to misunderstandings, a lack of real connection.
It's true, technology can be both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But you can't deny it's become essential for bridging those geographical gaps.
Right.
For enabling collaboration across cultures.
Think about all the tools we use every day.
Yeah.
Video conferencing, instant messaging, project management software, all that.
It's all part of it.
It's made it possible to connect with people across the world instantly
It has.
and to work together as if we were all in the same room.
Absolutely. And as technology keeps advancing, we're seeing even more new platforms emerging.
Right.
Platforms that are designed to boost our ability to collaborate globally.
It's exciting, isn't it? It feels like we're right on the edge of a whole new era of collaborations where your physical location doesn't really matter anymore.
Exactly. And that opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah.
For organizations, for individuals. Imagine being able to tap into the best talent, the best expertise from anywhere in the world.
It's like that global talent pool is finally a reality, not just something people talk about.
It is. And that's a game changer for organizations that want to innovate, that want to thrive in this interconnected world we live in.
But like you said before, technology is just a tool.
It is.
It's up to us to use it wisely.
Absolutely.
It can never fully replace that human element, can it?
No, it can't. Those face-to-face interactions, even if they're not happening all the time, they're still crucial for solidifying those partnerships.
Right.
And for fostering genuine connections.
Absolutely. Technology can help bridge the gap, but those in-person interactions are key.
They are. You know, we briefly touched on development projects earlier.
We did.
Particularly those happening in emerging countries.
Right.
Do you want to dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, I do. It seems like an area where partnering and contracting could have a particularly big impact.
It is. These projects are often run by international organizations or NGOs.
Okay.
And they're aimed at tackling those big issues.
Like
poverty, healthcare, education, infrastructure.
Right, the essentials.
All in developing countries.
So it's about more than just building stuff.
It's about more than that, yeah.
It's about empowering those communities, improving lives in a lasting way.
Precisely. And successful development projects, they really lean on partnerships.
Yeah, makes sense. What kind of partnerships are we talking about?
Partnerships between local organizations, government agencies, international donors, private companies, the whole shebang.
It's bringing together this really diverse group of people.
It is.
All with unique expertise and resources to solve really complex challenges.
Exactly. And those partnerships can take many different forms.
Oh, like what?
Joint ventures, capacity building initiatives, tech transfer agreements. There are so many possibilities.
It sounds incredibly complex, but also incredibly rewarding to be a part of.
It is. And it's an area where those principles we've been discussing, trust, collaboration, cultural intelligence.
Right.
They're absolutely essential. You can't get around them.
It makes sense when you're working in these sensitive, culturally diverse contexts. Those strong foundations are non-negotiable.
You need that solid base.
Absolutely. And the impact of these successful development projects, it can be Truly transformative, right?
It can.
Not just for individuals, but for entire communities, even countries.
Absolutely. It's inspiring to see the positive change that these collaborations can achieve.
Do any specific examples come to mind? Really successful diplomat projects.
So many examples, but the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh immediately comes to mind.
Okay, tell me about that one.
It's a microfinance organization, and through a network of partnerships, they've helped lift millions of people